What's up, everybody, and welcome to Growing Up Gaming, your weekly podcast where we meet a new person of the internet to discuss their childhood with gaming and how it inspired their lives today. My name is Mitch Power. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week to the show. Hope you're subscribing there on iTunes or Google Play or YouTube or Spotify or one of the many avenues that you can catch the show. And if you are out there supporting the show, listening each and every week, I greatly appreciate it. This week on the show, we have our guest. His name is Brandon Wilson. I met this man on Twitter. He is part of the OK Beast podcast group / website / all the awesome things that they do over at OK Beast. So he was nice enough to come on the show and share some of the awesome stories, including a particular guy named Ricky who had a very weird side gig. Let's just say that. But, you know, get to hear all of his awesome stories and everything. If you want to be on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. Without further ado, let's get things started with Brandon Wilson. Do you remember what initially got you started playing games? Was it a family member? Was it a friend? Was it some awesome advertisement you saw that got you started? Like, what initially got you started playing?
My brother had a friend named Ricky, and he lived right down the street from us. And Ricky thought he was a ninja, but in addition to his ninja skills, he also had a ColecoVision, if I recall correctly.
There you go.
And we would go down there. Actually, he had a ColecoVision and an Atari.
He was fancy.
Yeah, we would go down there. Ricky was one of those kids that. He had everything.
Of course. Was Ricky an only child?
Yes.
Of course he had everything because he was an only child.
Actually, I'm pretty sure he was the only kid. It appeared that he was the only kid anyway.
His other brother was.
He had everything.
He had everything he wanted. They loved Ricky more than him.
Yeah, when I say that he thought he was a ninja, like he literally had like full ninja outfits and weapons and all sorts of stuff. But he had multiple consoles and I think we played probably more ColecoVision than anything else, but I do recall there being an Atari in the mix. So yeah, that was like my first experiences with being a ninja and video games.
I wonder if Ricky still thinks he's a ninja. I wonder if like deep down he's like, if you guys only knew my real job.
Like, maybe he is a ninja now.
Maybe he is a ninja. He's a real ninja, or he settled for American Ninja Warrior. One of the two.
Yeah, it could be. I haven't ever thought to like look up Ricky on Facebook or anything. But
there you go.
Now I've suddenly got the urge.
There you go. Now you're gonna get out. You're gonna be done with this show. First thing you're gonna do is look him up, and it's just gonna be a picture of him in full ninja attire. You're like, damn, things don't change.
Ricky finally made it.
Ricky made it. He made his dreams come true. I mean, I guess, dude, when you're an adult, I mean, if you can make money somehow being a ninja, then go for it. I mean, ninja could be a viable job. We don't know.
I would encourage it. I think it would be awesome.
To be honest, though, I can tell you as a parent, if my kid's like, Dad, I want to grow up and be a ninja, I'm like, as long as it pays the bills, I guess. Like, I guess that's what you could do. So as long as you're making money, that's you're just paying your bills. Just don't stay at home being a ninja, because that wouldn't make me very happy.
Fully support the ninja hood.
I support the ninja hood as long as you're growing up and leaving the house. Don't be like that 35-year-old living at home. What do you do for a job? I am a ninja. Where do you live? With my parents. Of course you do. As far as, so you were playing ColecoVision and Atari. I mean, that's pretty much getting you started, though. I mean, that's kind of thing. I personally never played ColecoVision. Played Atari, of course. I mean, I won't say of course, because obviously there's a whole group of gamers out there that haven't, but like...
That's unfortunate, too.
It is unfortunate,
like,
yeah.
That's the roots. I feel like that's the roots of... obviously there were systems and video games prior to Atari, but I really feel like Atari was really the roots of the industry. Like, had Atari not worked out as well as it did, I'm not sure that we would have everything else that we have now.
Yeah, I mean, Atari definitely set the way for a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously Atari blew up before the NES did, but then obviously there was that crash where shit just got way too crazy, and there was that crash for a little bit of time and everything there. Like, it's crazy to think, though, because like I said, Atari being one of the better Well, first, and better home game consoles. I mean, there was a bunch of random ones, of course, that never took traction and stuff, but like Atari had, of course, when you had just your staples, your Pac-Man and Galaga and Defender and like all those, when people didn't have to go to an arcade to experience that thing and, that anymore, they could just be at home and do it, like absolutely a game changer.
Yeah, I literally played hours upon hours of Pitfall, and Pitfall was like literally, these little sprites that looked somewhat like a man, and
sure,
him jumping over these little things that look like logs and or alligators. Like, how can that hook you for hours and hours and hours? But it did. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think the other thing, too, is like back then you also had to use your imagination a whole lot more because, now when you look at a game box and you look at game art, it's real because that's literally what the game looks like. But when you look at look at like a Pitfall box back in the day, it will look like a man jumping over an alligator. So in your head, you're like, cool, that's what I'm doing. But if there was no context there, again, you couldn't tell. Like the only thing that showed you the difference is like, oh, this log is green or this log is brown, so I guess this is an alligator.
Yeah.
Like I'm
try handing that to our kids now. Like, give them the same box and don't give them any expectation, and then sit them down in front of the game and see what kind of train wreck that is.
Yeah, they'll be like, "What the hell is this, Dad? Why are you? Do you hate me? Am I in punishment? What are you doing?" Like,
that's not an alligator.
That's not an alligator. That's not a scorpion. What is that? Yeah, what's funny is like I just looked up Atari box art, and it was it's very it's a lot better of an illustration. It still looks sketchy, but alligator heads are apparently 17 foot long or something. Like, it's just really strange how that looks. But back then, again, you had to use your imagination. Also, too, though, even if you had picture art, even if you had an imagination, some games still didn't make sense. Like, they were just really bad.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. I can think of one in particular.
Which game?
Yeah. E.T.
Yeah. Who the fuck?
Like E.T. I'm pretty sure E.T. is on the list of most people's like worst video games ever. And I actually made the dire mistake of purchasing E.T. And man, what a train wreck.
Some people blame that for like the whole big downfall and stuff. Like there was that documentary that came out about E.T. Like Game Over, like the whole like E.T. on Atari and what a debacle it was and stuff like that. Like that was a documentary that they had. So it's just that particular game. When you look at it though, like look at the gameplay of it, you're like, what am I doing? What is this?
I recall one part of the game in particular that all of the screens looked the same, and you basically had to navigate it. It was almost like a maze, but almost all the screens looked identical. So how are you supposed to navigate this maze without some sort of visual indicator that you're going in the right way or the wrong way?
Right.
It's just like you had to memorize like stick movements on the Atari.
And of course, that's what you have to do. Remember stick movements, not, visual cues or context on a screen, but stick movements.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Yeah. It's funny because like some of those games are like that. I also like how they blatantly just took one game and made it another. Example, Pong turned into like hockey. It's the same game. So they just
Pong's been in. Yeah, Pong's been all sorts of different types of games, I'm sure, at many different points in over the years.
Right. It's just fun. Like I just also like, but also people get all weird. It's like Rocket League wouldn't be a thing without Pong. Like, yeah, no shit. It's also soccer was around before Pong ever was. So, I mean, we can look at that too, look at the other way around. But yeah, like those Atari 2600 games, I mean, some of them were great though, regardless of whatever physical limitations they had, but just also, things like game design helped that, not, visual graphics or, it's not like those games had a story or anything you could follow or voice acting to enhance the game back then. So you just kind of had to use your imagination. Did you, ever get your own Atari and all that in the house, or was it Ninja Ricky that you just went to go hang out with all the time to go do that?
No, I did eventually have an Atari 2600, and then I upgraded to the Nintendo when the Nintendo finally came out.
Right.
And I was raised by my grandparents, so I recall very vividly playing Nintendo on like a 13-inch television. Luckily, it was color, but like a 13-inch television in the kitchen at my grandmother's house, and that was the only place that I could play. And I would be there for hours as long as it wasn't time to eat. I was there on the games. It was pretty awesome though.
By the way, how funny is it? You talk about your grandma having a TV in her kitchen. My grandma had this like long bar stool that was like part of like a counter / bar area, and at the very end of it was like a 14-inch TV, and that was like the TV she loved. She sat at like the end of the bar, just watching this TV, and that was like her primary TV spot. If we wanted to know where grandma was, she was there. Like that's where she sat. So that's really funny too, because like I got to a point where I would actually hang out with my grandma quite a bit. Like I would go over her house often, but she basically had this like spare bedroom, and that was essentially my room. So thankfully she had a TV in there that I would go in there and play games. I didn't really upset too many people by taking up the TV and everything. Unless I was at my house, then that was a different story. Like my dad got to a point where he's like, I can't do this. Like you need your own TV in your room to play this. Like I am not, I actually just discussed it.
Because you didn't put up a whole lot of fight either. You were like, okay.
Well, it's my dad, number one. Number two, if I was like, Dad, I have to play Mario, he'd be like, we're going to have another discussion in a moment. But like, no, like I just discussed it in the other episode. Like if there was a John Wayne marathon on TV on a Sunday, I wasn't playing anything. My dad's like, leave. Go somewhere.
I'm totally with you because very similar. If it was the living room at my grandmother's house, it would be playing westerns all weekend long.
All day.
My grandfather, my grandfather was sitting there watching westerns the entire time. But luckily, I played in the kitchen and I could play as much as I wanted.
There you go. You just got to find that TV. Luckily, my dad got to the point where he's like, I can't do this, and he bought me like some garbage TV that was like again like a 13-inch TV. Which by the way, now there are iPads that are 13 inches. So like, if you
crazy.
Insulted a kid and gave him a 13-inch like TV today, they'd be like, "What are you doing right now? I can't do this.
What am I supposed to do with this?
What is this?" Yeah. So I mean, but dude, a 13-inch TV in your own room was like a godsend, dude. It was like yes, and you would sit, and of course, parents would get pissed when you sat 6 inches from it, but in ways you kind of had to because it's 13 inches big. So that's what happened back then. So there's nothing wrong with that. So. As far as it goes when it came to getting your consoles and all that stuff and getting games, was it essentially, or actually question, did you have brothers and sisters growing up?
Yeah, I had an older brother. He wasn't really as much into video games. Like Ricky was his friend.
Okay. So you knew Ninja Ricky through him. Right.
So a lot of times when we would go over there, I'd stay and play video games, and they'd go off and be ninjas, which worked out really well for me.
Your brother was a ninja too. I was unaware. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's a part-time ninja.
Part-time ninja. Got it.
Yeah, he wasn't full-time, but it was cool because I could go over there and hang out while they go and chop trees down with the katanas and whatever. And so my brother wasn't as much into video games as I was, and really never has been, which is unfortunate. But more video game time for me.
Right? Yeah. Again, when you don't have to share it, it's a little bit better. The only problem is, especially if you have like an older brother, that's where if they are into video games, that's where you get thrown into like passenger mode. You're like, man, sit down over here. I'm playing games. You're not playing anything. Yeah. So, at least, like I said, your brother, did he ever play games with you though? He just wasn't as into it?
We played games from time to time.
Right.
We'd play some football every now and then, he
just
didn't
wasn't
play
a
as
passion
much.
of his. He just kind of like was like, I'll do this now when in between ninja activities.
Yeah, I never really had an issue. Like he got into like playing guitar and so forth, so that was his thing.
Right.
And video games was my thing, and we never really had any issues as far as making sure we both had time on the consoles. I got really lucky when it came to that.
Yeah, at least you, like you said, you didn't have to worry about, sharing the time and stuff like that. So, like I said, if it was a younger brother, that's where you have the roles are reversed. You could be like, yo, sit down. Like, I'm playing right now. You can
Get out of my way.
Get out of my way. Or you can sit there and I had somebody who I've done this to my children, but never a younger sibling, where I gave them a controller that wasn't plugged in and go, you can play.
I've heard of a lot of people doing that, like, especially for, if you're watching it, if you babysit smaller children,
Yep.
or if you have smaller children of your own, or what have you, it does help occupy them, and they think that they're actually doing something. So I've definitely heard of that before.
Anytime me and my wife play Overcooked, my daughter immediately thinks she's playing. So she goes and grabs a controller. She sits down, and then my daughter will say, I want to play as the unicorn. So my wife just chooses the unicorn as her character. So that way it looks like she's playing. And then of course when we do well, my daughter gets all sorts of happy, and I'm like, yeah, you contributed. Sure you did.
I did that.
Yeah, you helped get 3 stars in this level when you can't even function this controller at all. Yeah, we played the other day. We were at Best Buy and just killing time. I was buying a new router, and I gave my daughter the Switch for the demo they have there, and I gave her Mario Party Deluxe, and I was like, here you go. And she just stared at the controller and stared at the screen and just had no clue how to, like, even start. She's like, what do I do? She doesn't understand the concept of moving the analog stick to the right to actually move your character right. So she's just like hitting every other button. She's like, I just don't get it. I'm like, all right, we're not there yet. You'll eventually get there.
Not yet. It'll happen though.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like my other 2 kids, who are 10 and 13, they are very much into games. Like their number one activity is playing games. So
yeah,
I
my
don't know
12-year-old
where they
is
got
a
it from,
Fortnite head.
Yeah.
Yeah, where did they get it from?
I have no idea. I mean, it's not like I had every console available for them from birth on, but whatever. No, my son, it's really cool though to see, like, my son who's 13 has his own taste in games now, not just the things I play. Like, that's honestly one of the cooler things, because he's introduced me to games that I wasn't looking at. And I'm happy that he did, because, like I said, some of these games end up being amazing. But then now, like, my daughter, who's 10, she's going to be 11 in, like, a month. She has now been having not her own taste, but, like, for example, my son does not play Fortnite. Like, he just doesn't.
That's good.
Yeah, exactly. In a way, so, like, initially I was all shitty on Fortnite. I was like, no, fuck that game. They stole from PUBG hard. I'm not doing it. Like, no. But my son would play PUBG, but he might, like, my son's playing, like, Rainbow Six Siege now, which I personally don't care too much for. I'm not saying it's a bad game. It's just I have other things to play.
Right.
But he plays that. He plays Ark Survival. He plays Breath of the Wild. Dude, my son's probably put 140 or 50 hours into Breath of the Wild. Like, it's insane. Also, he doesn't have a job, so he has the time to do it. So, but then my daughter's like, I really like Fortnite, to the point where I've actually played Fortnite with my daughter thanks to cross-platform play. She'll play on the Switch, I'll play on the Xbox. She'll play on the computer, I'll play on the Xbox. And me and her have actually connected through that. So, like, she'll be like, Dad, they added a new season. Here's all the new things.
That's awesome.
And it's awesome to see her excited about it. But then she plays, like, Roblox, which, again, that's also a very kid-ish game. But just recently, she's like, I want to play Tomb Raider. And I was like, absolutely. That's fine with me. Go ahead and play it, even though it's a little, like, oh, there's some moments in that game I'm like, holy shit, that's kind of crazy.
Right.
But now she's getting into games to the point where, like, I got the new Trials game, Trials Rising, which I'm a huge Trials fan. I love to death.
Right.
And she's like, hey, can I play that? I'm like, yeah, sure. She goes, and the one question that popped in her head, she goes, can you play as a female? And I was like,
can you?
Yeah, you can. You can actually choose a female character.
That's good.
And again, it's weird because, again, I don't think of these things, but then all of a sudden, that's why I'm like, that's probably why you really like Tomb Raider a lot. And that's awesome that there's, like, more females in games for her to feel like games aren't
like
just
she
for
has
guys.
Representation. Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, literally, it didn't even click in my head until she asked. She's like, can you play as a female in this game? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me check. And I showed her. I was like, yeah, you can. She's like, oh, that's awesome. So I'm like, I'm happy you have your own taste and you're not just playing what, everybody else is playing. Like, she's also playing, like, Minecraft story mode. Like, she's got her own thing now. So I'm like, dude, that's so awesome. And eventually my 3-year-old will get to the point where she's seeing enough games. The only thing that scares me is everything my 3-year-old touches, she thinks is a touchscreen. Everything. Which, again, makes sense because in her lifetime, touchscreens have been
everything is touchscreen.
Everything is a touchscreen, except for my 4K TVs that aren't. So when she comes up and I'm like, no, don't do that. But yeah, she doesn't understand the concept of like a controller in her hand moving a character yet. But again, she's 3. Eventually she'll get there. So that's fine. With you growing up and everything, did you have that cycle where you got games like birthday and Christmas, birthday, Christmas, birthday, Christmas, basically?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, that's most people around that, like a younger age and everything. That's what you have to
I was probably slightly more spoiled than that. Like I said, I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandmother was awesome. She was very good to us, and occasionally if we helped out around the yard, or did different chores or whatever, she would. This was like one of my favorite things in the world. She would take us to. She would take me specifically to Toys R Us, and back then, Toys R Us had these like cards on the wall that had pictures of the games, and you could flip the card over and you could see the screenshots of the games, and then you would take the little sheet of paper and take it up front to the guy behind the desk.
Which is so weird. Just this dude in a cage, like, what do you want?
This, like, I wish my kids could have that experience though.
Right.
Like, I don't know why. Like, it's like the most basic thing in the world, but to me that was something awesome. I would spend probably an hour to 2 hours, and she was completely patient with me. She was never trying to rush me. My grandma was awesome. I think I mentioned that already, but
my grandma was awesome too, bro. Grandmas are cool as hell, man.
I was very blessed by my grandmother, but she was completely patient the entire time. 2 hours in this Toys R Us with me walking back and forth to the same damn games over and over again. I'm like, do I want this one or do I want this one? And then I'll go back to the first one again. I just have this, going back and forth. But, finally grabbing that little slip and taking it up front, it was like the golden ticket. And you hand it over to the guy, and the guy would go get your box. And, it's got that new game smell.
Right.
It sounds crazy, but these are the things that are like permanently emblazoned in my brain.
Right.
And, I would bring it home, and I would break it out of the box, and I would, blow it off one time and stick it in the Nintendo. And
I like how that's the good luck charm. Like, let's make sure you blow into it. Which, by the way, I love how like every Nintendo cartridge was like, please don't blow into the cartridge. Like, don't do that.
It's a brand new game. Like, you shouldn't even need to blow into it. But that was like that was just part of my process,
Yeah, I mean, and also too, when you later learn, like, hey, rubbing alcohol in a Q-tip works so much better, so just do that instead.
Yeah, you learn.
That's what happens. But I remember I don't remember. I remember Toys R Us having it. I remember specifically Best Buy having a similar thing with me buying X-Men for Sega Genesis. Like, I remember that. Like, I had a paper that I took to a person, and it was just some dude in a desk, and behind him was like the vault. Like, here's all the glory, and behind me I can have access to all of this. And I remember.
Yeah, that's what you're like envisioning the whole time. Like, that's like the treasure trove that's behind the dragon or something.
Exactly. Like, yeah, it's like, let me open up this vault, and then there's just rows of games that are 20 stories tall, and let me get the ladder. And yeah, that's how we thought of it. In reality, it's just some boxes back there with a tag like, this is Mario 3. Okay, well, cool. I'm sure, like,
he's the gatekeeper.
Yeah, exactly. Or what an ego that guy at the desk had to have had, right? He's like, kids aren't happy unless I'm here. Like, oh, thanks, dude.
Right.
Yeah, you're so replaceable. Now kids just do that. My son does that in the comfort of his bedroom. Like, he just goes online. He just looks at the digital store, and is like, what do I want to buy? What do I want to buy?
Do I want this?
Do I want this? Sure. Hey, Dad, can I get this game? Like, and that's as simple as it is now. So, no, I mean, like, that was, dude, going to Toys R Us as a kid was like, it was the best place on earth. It was better than Disneyland, because you came home with a toy. You're like, this is the greatest place ever. I remember just like getting teeth pulled, and I was so bummed. I was like, this sucks. Like, nobody should have to do this. And my grandma was like, we can go to Toys R Us and get you a game. And like, it didn't matter if you ripped out 10 more teeth. I was like, yeah, let's go. I was like so happy to go do that. So, but yeah, we
We had Babbage's and Software Etc. too. I don't know if you've ever been to those, but it's like smaller version. Even KB Toys was like a really small toy store that also sold games. So if for some reason Toys R Us didn't have what you were looking for, there were alternatives. But Toys R Us was the one with the the Magic Gatekeeper. That was like the one you wanted to go to.
I remember going to I would go to Texas every year for a month to see my family in Texas, and my grandma was like, "Hey, I saw the store called Funkoland," and I'm like, I didn't know what that was. I don't remember there being one where I grew up. I'm sure there was, but I just, we didn't grow up very well off and stuff, so I didn't know about these things. My grandma was like, let's go in there. I remember going in there for the first time. It was just like a GameStop, and I was like mind blown. I was like, what am I in right now? This is fucking crazy. I'm like, my like 8 to 9 year old brain was exploding. I was just like blown away at the store. But yeah, like that just blew my mind away. I was like, oh my God, look at this place. It's all video games. That's all it is. And I remember every time I would go back to Texas, for some reason, I just thought they were in Texas because I was just like, can we go to Funkoland? Every time I would go there every year, I'm like, can we go to Funkoland, please? Which eventually Funkoland turned to EB Games, which eventually turned to GameStop. Like, that's all it was. It was a GameStop, but that was back in like the Genesis, NES, SNES era where it was just mind blowing. I was like, this back when you had to pre-order games because if you didn't, there was a good chance you didn't get it.
Right.
Not just for a bonus, because now pre-ordering games is dumb. Like, it's just preloading the game if you're digital now. You're just downloading it early to play it day one. So now you just don't have to leave the house and you don't have to wait till the release date to start downloading it. So the only benefit of pre-ordering it nowadays. But yeah, back then when you pre-ordered games, because there was a very good chance you did not get a game, you'd have to wait until the next batch and see if we got a game next week for that one. So all those fun stuff. So you went from NES to SNES, or what? Where did you kind of go from there?
I went to from NES to SNES. I had I actually had a Sega Master System also. Which
a lot of people will go, what's that? Like,
yeah, I
know what it is.
Sega Master System what came out, I guess it was at the same time that NES was.
Right.
And I played a fair amount. Like, I remember playing Altered Beast on that. And that was like the most trash game ever. And matter of fact, I think Alex may have talked about it as well when he was on the show. But they had, I think it was on Master System. But anyway, I know that Altered Beast was on the Sega system that I had at the time,
right?
Whichever one it was. But I was a big Sega fan for a long time. I had Dreamcast as well. Played lots of Dreamcast. That freaking eerie game, Seaman.
Yeah, because that didn't give anybody nightmares, right?
Like that is the creepiest game ever. Like, I don't know. But I played all sorts of like Crazy Taxi and Dreamcast was my jam for a little while.
It's funny because I was a Genesis kid, hardcore into Genesis. But then after that, my love for Sega just never stuck. Like, and I didn't say I never got a chance to play Dreamcast because again, at that time, I actually really wasn't playing games as often, so I didn't really play Dreamcast much. But like, dude, I was all about the Genesis, all about.
Yeah. Actually, now that I'm thinking back, I think Genesis is the one that I played Altered Beast on.
I think it might have been, because I think that was where that was on, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I loved my Sega, and I multiple Sega systems, but I also had Sega CD. I had that game Night Trap, which
Dude, that game was going to make
live
you murder
action
people.
Game that everybody thought was going to be the new thing that all video games was going to go to, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, no, but again, if you remember, that was the game that Linda Tripp thought was going to make you murder people because that was the game that everybody was like, this is where they're so violent. If you look at that game, it's hysterical. It's like laughable at the violence that's in that game. Because I'm like, I saw more blood on SVU just now than that game ever had ever. Yet this is like, oh my God, this is going to ruin people. This is the downfall of society. Like, yeah, Night Trap is the downfall of society. That was like around the whole time when games actually started getting ratings too, because that game and Mortal Kombat pissed off a lot of conservative parents. So yeah, like that was when the whole rating system happened because of Night Trap.
Yeah, I think that was around the same time. Well, actually, it was a little before that. Probably in the Nintendo, the original Nintendo era was when like Tipper Gore was also trying to like get rid of video games entirely. That was like part of the crash period. Man, I've been through all that, and I can really recall, large portions of it. But I've had just about most of the consoles that have come out. I even had a 3DO, which I actually loved. I played the 3DO.
I'm just playing.
I love the 3DO. I played it a lot. I remember playing Road Rash on 3DO. I had a game called Killing Time. That was awesome. It was like a first person shooter where you're inside of a mansion with like ghosts and stuff.
It looked like a Doom-esque game in a way. Like,
kind of similar, like corridor shooter kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I'm just Googling it right now. That cover is aggressive.
That
cover is so aggressive.
And there were jump scares in that game, even though that was kind of like the technology wasn't quite there yet.
Sure.
But there were jump scares in that game, and I remember like you could shoot the ducks and the ducks would splatter with blood.
This I remember like the game that would piss off every parent. Ever.
Well, I can tell you what really pissed them off was there was a maid in that game. The maids would walk through the halls of the mansion, and the only piece of voice acting that they had was one line, and it was housekeeping, and they just walked through the mansion the entire time, and that's all you could hear for hours while you're in that section of the mansion.
Oh my God.
And I'm sure that drove my grandmother batty.
Dude, by the way, any time that happens where there's just like one line that gets uttered over and over and over and over, yeah, that'll make you want to kill somebody. Like, it's just so frustrating and everything. Dude, this Killing Time game literally looks like a parent's nightmare. It looks like my kid should never play this game. And I mean, obviously it has a rating. It's like not recommended for children, but that looks like the type of game that would entice every kid on earth to want to play it and every mom to like tell their kid they can never play that game. Like, did your parents ever give you any grief, or your grandma ever give you any grief about playing certain games, or did they ever tell you no to certain games?
Not that I really recall.
No, because you had these games. Like, it sounds like you had Night Trap and you had Killing Time, so it's not like they didn't seem to get too upset by it.
No, I never really had any issues. Like I think my grandfather would get a little annoyed at the amount of time that I would play. But, it'd be like late at night, and I recall him like walking down the hallway, and he just woke up, and it's like 2:00 in the morning, and his hair's all over the place, and he's walking by in his boxers, and he's on his way to the bathroom, and he would stop just long enough to say, "What the hell are you doing, boy?" And I'm like, "I'm playing video games," and he'd just continue on about his business, and that would be it. Like, I never really got in trouble for playing games, and I never really, they never really gave me any flack over the games that I wanted. I usually made pretty good choices, though.
Sure.
As far as asking for things that weren't appropriate or whatever.
Sure. I mean, that's the thing too. It's not like I remember my mom was very much like, I think that most parents, obviously you teach your kid the right thing, right? You tell your kid, hey,
right,
don't hurt people, don't hit people, don't kill people, don't do these bad things. But then, like, I think my mom didn't really care until, like, the news got involved, which, like you said, with, like, Tipper Gore and all that stuff saying, like, oh, games are bad, this is what's happening and all that. I think that's when, like, parents woke up and they all of a sudden became woke, and they were like, oh, no, my kid's playing this horrible game. I remember my mom was like, I don't want you watching Power Rangers, because she's scared I was going to do like kung fu moves on the cat and shit. I'm like, right, Mom, I'm fine. Like, I know not to go out, and also I know when you kick people in the chest, fireworks don't shoot out of their chest. So I'm like, Mom, I'm good. Like, I promise you.
Well, I remember like news stories with regard to like Dungeons and Dragons, Power Rangers, and wrestling, like WWF wrestling,
Right.
like people talking about how children were breaking each other's necks or whatever because they put another kid in a suplex or what have you. And I do remember those news stories, but I think it's kind of like the media today. I think it's a little sensationalized, or a lot sensationalized. And, I think it was somewhat blown out of proportion. And now that we're adults, we kind of look back on it and go, yeah, that was a little bit crazy. Like, I don't really think it was to the extent what they were trying to make out of it. So I don't know. It kind of helps me put things in perspective now with my kids. Like, do I think that they should do that, regardless of whatever else, what other all the other buzz going on? Do I think that they can handle it, or do I think that they should handle it?
Right. That's definitely something I've done with my kids as well. Cause like I just make sure that my kid's not a crazy person. That's how I basically think of it. I'm like, I believe I've taught my son right from wrong. I believe that I'm doing a solid job. Perfect? No one is. Solid job. My kid hasn't done any crimes. He hasn't gotten in fights. He hasn't gotten bad grades. He's fine. He's a kid. But like when he was playing games initially, when he was starting to play games and stuff, he slowly got introduced. Both my kids started with like the Lego games, because that's the easiest thing to get them introduced to how like game mechanics work. So I was like, play Lego Star Wars, Lego Indiana Jones, whatever. And then eventually he's like, can I play Battlefield? And I'm like, sure. And then as he's playing games like that, shooting people, I'm like, it's bad to shoot people, right? Like, I just like to double check and check in on him. Like, you shouldn't shoot people, right? And he's like, yes, I know, Dad. I'm like, all right, cool. But there's still games out there that, again, he's 13. He's definitely maturing, but there's still certain games I'm like, hold off for a little bit. Like, the one couple of them that, and I mean, he's played games that are like on the cusp of like bad, but like, obviously my son's not playing Grand Theft Auto because I'm not a terrible person.
Yeah, we've had that discussion in my house, as a matter of fact. Like, my 12-year-old is asking me, can I play GTA? And I'm like, nope, not yet.
No, I'm sorry. There's shit in that game that as an adult, I'm like, holy shit. That's crazy. Like, Trevor as a character alone should never make your kid play GTA 5, because that's insanity. As an adult, I'm like, wow, look at that shit. But no, with like other games, like Gears of War is like, you shotgun people into pieces. And I'm like, just a little longer, like 16. Yeah. We'll do that one. Yeah. But like games like Assassin's Creed, where you shove a blade up someone's face and it comes out the top of their head, I'm like, that one's rough. We're gonna hold off on that. But he played Dishonored, and I'm like, he's played Dishonored and he's played Fallout. And it's dumb as like Americans were like, the sexual stuff's bad, but you can stab somebody, go right ahead. Like, that's fine. Decapitation's fine. It's fine. Shoot somebody in the face and fall out and their head like explodes. Fine. Just don't see a boob, right? But yeah, I mean, like, you just have to gauge your kid as well. Like, like for example, with Tomb Raider, I was like apprehensive with my daughter because she's like 10. I was like thinking after, I was like, oh shit, there's some messed up stuff in Tomb Raider. I'm like,
right.
I mean, she's seen an Avengers movie. It's not like Lara Croft's running around cussing, swearing, and doing all these crazy things. I'm like, yeah, there's violence, but I mean, she saw Spider-Man turn to dust. She's fine. She can do this. She can handle this. But yeah, so far she's been good. And like I said, there's certain games though. I get where you're coming from though. I'm like, yeah, this is just, we can't do this. This is just too much now. But also too, back then, what's funny is back then games had gotten to a point where that was as real as they looked.
Right.
But now if you look back at them, it's comical. Like, it's funny. Like, we freaked out over Night Trap. Go look up YouTube videos of Night Trap and like realize like there was something wrong with us. But again, that's what we had to work with back then. So can't really complain about it. Did you like Sega so much that you got a CD in 32X?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to think back. I'm pretty sure that I had every possible Sega variation. Like, I think I had everything that came out. And as a matter of fact, off of the Sega kick for a second, I had a Nintendo Power Glove.
Oh my God.
Like I literally thought that I had superpowers when I wore that thing. Like I honestly wish that they would come out with another Power Glove.
No, you don't.
I don't know why.
No, you don't.
I honestly don't know why, but I can imagine like me as a 42-year-old guy, like walking around the house with a freaking Power Glove on. That'd be awesome.
Right.
Or not.
Yeah. Well, okay, here's the thing. If I would only wear a glove like that if it did things within my home. For example, I have a smart home. I have about 7.
Now you're talking.
Yeah. Now, if I was like, if I snapped my fingers and pointed at a light and that shit came on, I'd wear it daily. I'd be like,
or if you snap your fingers and half the lights turn off.
Yes. That's where I would do it. For video games, absolutely not. Get out of here with that shit. If I could control my house, just be like snapping or waving like the Force. Just TV turns on, done. Give me a Power Glove all day long. But I'm sure Amazon's coming up with that. Amazon's in some lab somewhere doing that. That's fine. It's the Power Glove. That thing.
Alexa's about to take it to another level.
Right. Yeah. I would love it if they just straight named it the Power Glove 2. This is the sequel. We don't use it for games. We use it to control your house. And it has Alexa built into the glove. That's all you could. As long as it had that, Amazon would do it. So, you literally, like I said, it sounds like you had pretty much everything as far as like consoles and stuff go. Did you have... Obviously, like you had friends growing up and everything, like that you would just go over to their house as well and do your sleepovers and all that stuff as well, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like that became a staple. Like the only thing I'll say is it was nice is I had friends like that had the opposite of what I had. So it made it enticing to go over there even more. Like I knew.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
I knew he had a 64 and I didn't. Yes, I'm going over there. And that was like a selling point back in the day, going over a friend's house to stay the night. Yeah, I got a 64. Let's go. I got a Nintendo 64. That's all you have to tell me, dude.
I actually had a friend. I'm not going to name anybody, but I had a friend back in, this would have been late elementary school or early middle school. And this was like, I had just started getting into games and, at the same time, I like really wanted a computer, and I'm not much of a PC gamer in general. I have been over the years, but right now I'm not really into it. But like aside from the Atari and the Nintendo, like my first computer was a Tandy 1000, and the Tandy 1000 took a 5 1/4 disc, and it was a Radio Shack computer, and you could get games for it. But as you can imagine, they weren't overly exciting.
Sure. On a 5 1/4 disc, they can't really be.
Yeah, it was like, 256 kilobytes was your limit, as far as what could be available. But, I had a friend that had a Commodore 64, and he had like racy video games, like, that showed nudity and stuff like that. So like he was my golden friend. Like I needed to go over his house and go play Commodore 64 because he had the interesting video games, you know. Yeah, this would have been I think early middle school.
He had when interesting video games and the cool parents that were like, yeah, whatever, we're fine with all that, right? You always had those parents.
I don't think they had any clue. Like,
oh, that's true.
I think these were like contraband games that found their way into the house. It was. That was the very interesting times.
I was gonna say, I always find that funny because you had the parents that were either straight up oblivious or didn't care. So you always went to their house. Like it was like, oh, you can't watch Terminator 2 because it's rated R. And you're like, okay, fine. That's what your parents say. And then you go to Gary's house and they're like, we just rented Terminator 2. You want to watch it? Like, hell yeah, let's go. You always have
I was lucky enough to have both of those scenarios. Like some friends' parents that were oblivious and some friends' parents that didn't care. So
yeah, there's always the two. There's always, those are good things, dude. So, I mean, but also too, to be honest, like I also had an uncle who didn't care what my mom thought. He was just like, I'm going to buy you Mortal Kombat. Like, I don't care. Like, so shout out to those awesome people that just straight defy every other rule that your parents had for you and everything. So, but also too, I mean, like, you know, like I got to experience those games at those times and everything. Like Mortal Kombat, my mom would have never bought me, but thankfully eventually she like wear down to the point where I'm like, Mom, I've already played it. Like, I haven't killed anybody. I don't plan to kill anybody. So why don't we just get Mortal Kombat 3 for me? But yeah, I mean, like those games are, I mean, again, I guess it depends on the age that you see them, because I can imagine seeing some games too early would probably mess your head up as well. Like, but again, you just have to parent your kid, make sure your kid knows.
Mortal Kombat would be one of those.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, Mortal Kombat's definitely one of those that are kind of crazy. You know what I mean? Like it's back then.
It's crazier now than it was
Dude.
then. I mean, I remember playing it on the arcade game. Like I would line up quarters waiting to play it, and today. Like I've seen a lot of the footage for Mortal Kombat 11.
It's insanity.
And that
I'm like,
it's straight insanity.
Well, the crazy, I mean, here's the other thing too, is like back then they had to work within the technology they had. Now they have realistic technology. Like games look realer than they ever have. And like some of the fatalities that are in that game, I'm like, holy shit, dude, that's brutal.
And back in the day, there was lots of news surrounding these fatalities on Mortal Kombat back in the day, like Mortal Kombat 1. But now we're at Mortal Kombat 11 and we're kind of desensitized to it. Like it's way worse now, but I haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah, wait till it comes out.
Other than people talking about how awesome it looks. Like
right. No, like every time I see things for it, and like, yeah, well, you're right too, though. Like the desensitized part of it, you know what I mean? Like, obviously but there's still things in that I look at and go like, holy crap. Like I've seen a lot of terrible things thanks to the internet. I've seen horrific things, and I look at some of those and I'm just like, wow. Like, but also movies are getting to the point where, you know, horror movies get more and more graphic because visual effects, also practical effects are getting better. Like you can make a lot of crazy things happen now, but we're so desensitized to it. But God forbid there be a boob. If there's a boob, man, you better shield your kid's eyes. Let that dude get decapitated all day long, but make sure you keep him away from boobs forever. Because that's
no side boobs, no nipples, no nothing. You can't have any of it,
dude. However, watching some of those MK11 fatalities, Johnny Cage's fatality is my favorite. It's so, I don't know if you've seen it. I
don't know if I've seen that one.
He basically uppercuts a person. He goes, no, I didn't like that. And they go, all right, take two. And they have like a marker, just like a film. And there's like a boom mic that shows up above him to like record the audio. I'm like, I love this so much. And it's just like, take 47. And he's uppercutted this dude like so many times.
It sounds very Johnny Cage.
It is so Johnny Cage, and it is so good. I saw that and I was like, that's my new favorite one. Like, it's just so, it's perfect. It fits him so well. So, and yeah, again, games just as you progress have just gotten more and more violent. I mean, I think the crazy one, like, Mortal Kombat was definitely one that like triggered that, but then like you get into like the 3D realm, like PlayStation 1 stuff. And then it started getting just more and more crazy. Obviously, so when you were going through, though, did you have PS1 and 64?
I got PS1 on the day that it launched. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think I had gotten rid of my N64, strangely enough.
I mean, I'm not.
I know that I got PlayStation 1, like I was in line for the PlayStation 1 when it launched. And nobody thought it was going to be that big because, you know, like Sony was this new kid in town.
Right.
And yeah, I got that when it launched, and I played the hell out of the PlayStation 1 for sure.
PS1 though was like, it was, again, you're right though, it was the new kid in town, but then as soon as you saw like, everybody has like a certain game that they saw that made them just go, wow, like this is why I need this. But I mean, like for me, it was Twisted Metal. Like I saw somebody, my neighbor across the street play Twisted Metal 2, and I was like, holy shit, this looks awesome. Let's play this. But I mean, everybody has their own game. I still think like Mario 64, for example, is the one that, for me, I remember that just being mind blowing. Like seeing 3D with the analog stick in that world, I was just like, that was definitely like. I went over to my mom had a friend in Texas when we went to visit in Texas. My mom had some high school friend or something. She's like, we're going to go visit her. And I'm like, I don't know this person. I don't know their kids. This is going to be awkward. This is going to be weird. And then they were like, We have an N64
there's
Mario.
an
And I literally was
N64.
like, stop talking. Just show me where it is. That's all I want to see.
Yeah, I
right
do
now.
remember Mario 64, Donkey Kong 64. I remember one of my favorite games on the N64 was, I'm pretty sure it was an N64, was Turok
Yep,
Dinosaur Hunter.
definitely was.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite games. And it's funny because like when they try to revisit some of these franchises, it's just not the same.
No,
Like,
it doesn't
I don't
work.
know if like I don't know if you ever played the first game, but these sequels just didn't cut it. I think on today's generation, I think a Turok would be really really cool. Like if they did it accurately and did it well, I think Turok Dinosaur Hunter would be pretty awesome. But yeah, I played GoldenEye. GoldenEye is still like one of the gold standards for first person shooters.
I think that was the case back then. But if you go back and try to play GoldenEye now,
Yeah,
it's not. It
it's
doesn't
difficult
work.
and it's trashy.
Right. It just doesn't work. Like, but the other thing too is like, it's just like making the first of anything, right? Like you made the first person shooter. Like obviously they didn't make the first one, but like you had the most popular one here. Obviously over time, people just get to a point where they figure out a way to do it better or control better or design levels better. So there's just like all these things that will eventually make it better. But some of those games you go back and play and they do not hold up. Like,
well, I think GoldenEye was a lot, and in some of the stuff you still see today that came from that game,
right?
But I think it was a lot of like how they mixed in multiplayer and how the level design for the multiplayer. I think that was really parts of it that kind of set it off from anything else that had tried to do that previously.
Yeah. I mean, I think like that. Also, the multiplayer and everything on the multiplayer part of N64 games were a big factor, just because that was something that they. I'm not going to say they forced. I'll never say that Nintendo forced it, but they probably strongly recommended that you put 4-player multiplayer in your game, because like that was a thing, dude. Like that was the one thing they had over PlayStation for sure. Like it was way better for them to have that and everything, because that was their linchpin. Like I don't remember many PS1 games being 4-player multiplayer because you had to go buy that multi-tap. Like, whereas on N64,
yeah, I don't remember ever using the multi-tap.
Right. Whereas on N64, so many games used them like 4 players. So many games like encourage 4-player multiplayer. Even games where it was bad and you didn't want to do it, like they still were like, no, you can play 4-player. Doesn't matter, because everybody had 4 controllers because of a game that was already on there. Like, oh, you had GoldenEye. Oh, you had Mario Kart. Oh, you had Mario Party or Smash. You already have 4 controllers. Let's just make these games that have 4 players as well.
Yeah, and it was smart. Like, to me, that I'm sure that sold systems too, to a certain degree.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, like, well, look at again with GoldenEye. Like that game alone probably sold so many consoles. Like so many. Just that game right there. But then, like they really went, and ever since then, Nintendo's always had 4 ports on their system, like, or the ability to play with 4 players at least. Like every console from then on out, which you could say that about every console, but they were the first one. I'm trying to think. Dreamcast came out after N64. Yeah, because Dreamcast had 4 ports. But after that, like it's weird though that even like PS2 didn't have 4 ports, and then eventually PS3 wireless, you can have 4 and you're fine. But even like PlayStation didn't really embrace like that kind of multiplayer and everything until like later on. But that works. I mean, everybody's got their own. Some people don't even care about the 4-player multiplayer, but when you have 4 players sitting on a couch talking all sorts of crazy shit, playing games against each other, it's real. That's a special time.
Yeah, I think I would use it probably more now than I would have then, only because now, like, my whole entire family likes to play. My wife is addicted to Fortnite. My youngest is also addicted to Fortnite. But my whole entire family plays, and I think it would be cool to sit down and play some stuff like that. Like, obviously, we do now, but most of it is like we're hooked up over the network through Xbox,
right?
But sitting all on the same couch would be, sort of a different experience.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's unfortunate now is that games, technology-wise, some games, it's weird to think about because, like, for example, certain games get rid of couch co-op or get rid of, something like that. And I always wonder why. And I mean, obviously there's evidence to back up that couch co-op isn't as popular. But then somebody mentioned, like, for example, when Halo 5 didn't have local co-op, people fucking freaked. Like, people were pissed because every other Halo before then had it. So people were all sorts of mad. But then when they literally go, we're trying to run this game at 60 frames a second and you want us to do it twice. Because think about it. Like, your console's running 2 copies of Halo 5 in 1080 60 at the same time. Like, that sucks. Like, that's not easy to do. So they just go, no, it's co-op, but you have to do it online because now that makes it easier for the developer. So now I like how, though, games now have there's like a certain genre, if you will, of like couch co-op games. Like, that's actually something that's advertised on the Xbox store as like couch co-op. And I think that's awesome because now there's that thing. I will tell you, Nintendo, like, as a family, because me and my family play, my wife and I play and stuff like that, Nintendo has never gone away from that, and that's one thing I'll appreciate them for. Like,
yeah, that's why another reason why I desperately want to get a Switch is Nintendo's always been good for that.
There's an insane amount of 4-player co-op games that you can play a couch co-op because, again, Nintendo's online isn't the best, but their couch co-op is phenomenal. Like Mario Party, Mario Kart, Smash. And it sucks because you could say, like, oh, that's all Nintendo has. But guess what? They're 3 phenomenal-ass games that no matter what console they end up being on, they're all good. Smash, Mario Kart, Mario Party on Switch are all great. Mario Tennis on Switch is awesome. Overcooked's great. Snipper Clips, which is like a puzzle game that's like co-op. I have so many, like, couch co-op games for the Switch, and it's brought some of the more fun times my family have had playing games, so why would I not encourage that? Like I said, on the Xbox, there's some, like I played Overcooked on that, Death Squared. There's a couple of, like, couch co-op games, but a lot of them are, like, puzzle games or, like, kind of platforming games, you know what I mean? Most shooters, they don't do couch co-op anymore just because, again, of technology-wise, it's hard for them to render it twice.
Right. And plus, it kind of... I've never liked shooters on a couch co-op, especially if it's like
screen space.
Especially if it's like competitive instead of co-op. Right. If it's competitive, obviously you got people peeking on other people's screens, and it always turns into like an argument. But yeah, if it's true co-op. I never had a problem with it, but like the Left 4 Dead and those type of games,
Left 4 Dead, that's so good.
Those were definitely good shooter type games that were co-op. And it was a really solid co-op.
Oh my god, that game! Yeah, couch co-op. That game was phenomenal. That game was so good. The funny thing is, you mentioned the screen cheating. Did you ever see the game called Screen Cheat?
I don't think so.
There's a game called Screen Cheat, and if you haven't seen it or heard of it, anybody listening, please go look it up. Basically, it is a competitive first-person shooter. The thing is, everyone's invisible. Okay?
I think I've heard of this one.
The only way you can tell where somebody is by looking at other people's screens to figure out where they are in the map, and then just shoot. That's the only way.
So crazy.
And that's hysterical because they basically found a way to make that bullshit tactic that cheaters would do and make it in a way that
part of the game.
And I remember hearing about it and I'm like, brilliant. Like, that's just such a good idea for you to do that. Like, yeah,
I do remember hearing about that now.
That's just so funny because you'll be like, wait a minute, I'm looking at your screen, you're staring up this hill, and I'm looking down this hill. Just start shooting. Like, I hope I hit you. It's that's a fun take on that. But yeah, I mean, now, like, if it's like you said though, if it's co-op, then it's completely fun and doable. Competitive, yeah, not so much. Because again, you get those cheaters, and yeah, you try to do things. I don't know if you ever did the whole like I've seen people put like cardboard up, like you look on this side, I look on this. I'm like, you guys are really apparently this is a big problem for you guys.
Yeah. I've seen some people do all sorts of different things for that reason. Like back in some of the times that I used to do PC gaming, we would used to do like an annual LAN party, where we'd get tons of people together, and we'd cook out, and there'd be like there'd be lots and lots of PCs hooked up, and we would play. This was back in like Quake 2 days.
Oh yeah.
So I used to play Quake 2 and Unreal Tournament. I used to play competitively.
Oh, nice.
And we would get, there'd probably be 20 or 30 people in this house, and just eating and drinking and playing video games.
Is
and
that not the greatest weekend of your life, though? Like, that sounds incredible, right?
There's very little sleeping going on, but all sorts of fun and craziness.
Yeah,
it was pretty awesome.
Here's the thing now is like, think of how big the goddamn PCs and like monitors were back then to like haul that to a buddy's house.
Oh yeah,
a nightmare. Now it's like, cool, I'll bring my gaming laptop and that works well. Like, it's nice and compact. Like LAN parties with like CRT TVs compared to like the TVs we have now. Like, it's just so much better now. But the thing is, how funny is it? TVs and computers and game consoles have all gotten smaller to the point where it's easier to take them to a friend's house. But then there's this thing called the internet now where we don't have to do it.
You don't even have to go there.
You don't have to. It's like a cruel mistress. It's like, we could do this. I still, like I said, like, I personally, like, I had parties, and Rock Band was this still the best party game ever. It really
I imagine.
It's playing 4 players with, and I was a huge Rock Band fan to where I think I have like 800 songs or something like that.
Wow.
So like Rock Band, everybody playing an instrument, a lot of people being drunk playing these instruments. It was incredible. And there's, just like people singing, because that was the one everybody wants to do, because everybody wants to make a fool of themselves singing. But then you get that one person who's drunk enough to sing Disturbed, and I'm like, wow, all right, let's go. And it's
that sounds good.
It's a comedic event. That's better than any movie, just seeing somebody try to sing. But yeah, like, those types of moments are really fun, but now the internet exists to where we don't have to do them together. But I still think, like I said, I'm still with you though, where there's that like getting together and having a party like that is just so fun. But, adults having responsibilities, it's hard to, it's hard enough to coordinate online games with my friends. I text my group thread, Apex Legends in an hour, ? And then everybody's doing shit. So it's like, try to get people together in the same house, let alone online together at the same time. It's hard to do. So, but that's when you're a kid, you get to do all those things, and it's a lot more fun when you don't have responsibilities. So, you were doing like Quake, PC, all that stuff. Were you still console gaming during the competitive time though? Like, were you? Because around that time, it was it PS2 around that era, or was it? It was still like PlayStation 1 era style, right? Like,
well, I actually took a hiatus after PS1. I took a hiatus from PlayStation for a while, and I didn't have I actually think I had a PS2 kind of early on and got rid of it for one reason or another. And then I didn't have a PS3 at all, and I just recently got a PS4. So I'm trying to like catch up on all years and years of Sony stuff, and it's not because I haven't wanted one. It just I've had an Xbox for the last few years, all the iterations, right, up into the Xbox One. And I just, especially early starting a family and stuff, you know how things are. Like, it's difficult to like justify having multiple consoles at that time and buying games for multiple consoles. But now, things are a little bit more comfortable, and I've got multiple consoles. I'm incredibly thankful for all that. But I did take a bit of a hiatus from PlayStation for a while, but I've had, I had the original Xbox, I had an Xbox 360, and now an Xbox One.
Did you ever go like GameCube, Wii? Nobody went Wii U. Let me rephrase that. No, I'm just playing. Did you ever go with Nintendo as well, or did you, when you got to that point, you were just kind of like sticking with Xbox, and that's kind of where I'm staying at?
Yeah, I had, I skipped the GameCube, which I'm very regretful for. I kind of wish that I would have had, and I may actually go back and get one, but,
just wait for Nintendo to do a GameCube Classic. They'll do it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that would be perfect. But, and it's funny because I recently was going through like old photos and videos and stuff, and I found the video where I used to used to travel a lot for work, and I was out on a job, and I was getting ready to come home, and this was when the Wii launched. And I don't know if you remember, when the Wii launched, it was very, very hard to get one.
Oh, I remember.
There's very little supply, and on a whim, it was the day before I was coming back from a trip, and on a whim, I went into a GameStop, and laughingly, I'm like, so y'all don't have any of those Wiis laying around? And the dude literally is like, I just had a lady return one that is completely brand new in the box. She never even took it out. Like her kid went on some kind of rampage and he got in trouble, so she just brought it back.
Damn,
I guess
that's crazy.
Tough luck for that kid, but I literally bought that Wii and took it home that day, and I've got the video of me giving it to the boys for the first time.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Then we skipped the Wii U, like most people could have.
Did, yeah.
And then I'm desperately want to Switch, but I haven't gotten one yet. But it'll happen eventually. I know. I played Alex's Switch quite a bit, and I really enjoyed it. I know I'm gonna like it.
Yeah,
just haven't had the opportunity yet.
What's crazy is like, it's funny you mentioned like the whole Wii thing, because like I used to work at a video game store when the 360 came out. It was bad, but not that bad. I quit the summer before the Wii came out. So like I remember calling everybody, just like, do you have a Wii? Do you have a Wii? Do you have a Wii? No. Okay. No. And I remember like, it was like some covert ops shit. Like I called a game craze, and they were like, all right, we're going to get like 11. I didn't tell you that though. You got to be here at this time. As soon as we open, we're going to have them. Like it was insane. And it's crazy, but like Nintendo consoles have kind of always been like that. Except for the Wii U. That was the best one, because like I worked at Best Buy, and there was this guy who I did not like, who I will not mention by name. I did not like him at all. And he was one of those assholes that would buy 3 copies of a game, 1 to keep sealed, 1 to sell on eBay, and 1 to play. Okay? Now, I personally hate those people, because you are literally taking away opportunities of people who really want one, right?
Right.
Like you're that asshole on Black Friday who buys 17 consoles, and now the mom who comes in who wants one for her kid can't get it because you're a prick and you're going to resell them or whatever. Like, I'm not a fan of that.
I'm with you.
So this guy was all sorts of like pissed that Best Buy wouldn't allow him to pre-order more than 1 Wii U. They're like, no, it's only 1 per person, because Best Buy tried to crack down on that shit, which I'm thankful for. So what's he do? He goes to every Best Buy in Arizona that's around the local area, which is probably like 10, and pre-orders one at each of those stores. And I'm like, dude, you're such a dick. Like, you're just trying to get these to go on eBay the day they come out when they're harder to find, and sell them for $100 more just to make a profit, because you're an asshole. Like,
yeah.
I can't stand when you do that. Wii U launch happens, and no one gives a shit. Like, no one cared. I walked into the Best Buy the day it came out.
There's stacks of them.
And there's stacks of them, and I'm just like, ha, that's funny. And of course, the guy ends up canceling like more than half of his pre-orders. He's like, I thought it was going to be more of a demand. And I'm like, that's what you get. You're an asshole. Like, that's what you get for doing
how'd that work out?
Things. Exactly. Like, and I mean, I've had to turn down people though. When I worked at those stores, I've had to turn down people because pricks would come in and do that. And I'm like, some mom would come in like, oh my God, I'm just looking for a Wii for my son. He really wants one for his birthday. And I'd be like, I'm really sorry. That person just bought 5. Like, come on, dude. Stop doing this.
Yeah, how do you break that to him?
Yeah, exactly. Like, sorry, Timmy couldn't get one because that prick's going to sell one on eBay for $400 more. Like, you're an asshole. I just don't like when people do that. Like, what I've always done for my buddies is, if for example, like when the Xbox One Scorpio Edition came out, I was going to pre-order it day one, and I had a credit card where I could pre-order a couple of them for my friends. However, I sold them to my friends at cost. I wasn't a dick. I didn't go, you have to pay me $100 more because I got it for. No, I was just like, oh, you don't have money now? Cool. Will you have money when this comes out? Cool. I will buy it. And then worst case scenario, if you don't give me the money, I'll just go return it to Best Buy and not be an a-hole and sell it on eBay for more. Like, that's what I've always done in case like my buddies are like, oh dude, I want to get this. I just don't have the funds now. I've done that for my friends a couple times and they've always come through.
That's legit.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, dude, I want us all to have the same thing and be happy and like everybody be playing the same thing at the same time. Like, we could all have fun, but yeah, I mean, like worst case scenario, it's happened before though, where I've gotten something. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot I ordered that. All right, let's go return it. And I could have sold it on eBay, but no, I'm not going to be like that. It's people like that, there's a special place in hell for people like that. So that's okay. So as like you said, your gaming habits now, you have an Xbox One, you have a PS4, you don't have a Switch yet. By the way, Switch, when it first came out, some people were like iffy on, just because like Zelda came out, then Mario Kart came out, and then like nothing. Dude, that console's way worth it now.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Like,
I can't wait to get one.
Oh, and this year, all the stuff that's coming out for, good Lord. Oh, like at first I was like, let's see if Nintendo can do. Nintendo has like fully redeemed themselves with this console. Like, Nintendo's great again.
I thought I could hold myself over because I actually built a handheld emulation
that's legit
machine.
Yes.
So it's got a Raspberry Pi in it. Nice. And it'll play pretty much. It's got emulation that'll play all the way up to like PlayStation 1 roundabout. Awesome. And it's handheld. So I thought I was going to hold myself over until later I can get a Switch. But that thing that I built is dead now.
Oh no!
And B, I think it just built my craving to want more, and I desperately want to get a Switch. It's just a matter of time.
Right. And then the other problem is you run across the adult situation, right, where you're an adult, you make money, you can buy what you want. However, you don't have enough time to play the shit you buy, so there's that dilemma.
Yep.
You have to wait until time off, but then if you have a family, time off is involving them, not video games. So, like there's that yin and yang, like here in a little bit, I'm going to get a medical procedure done myself. I'll be out for like 4 days and I'm looking forward to it because I can't do a damn thing besides sit on the couch. And I'm like, I'm going to go beat some games that I've been sitting on. So should be fun. But yeah, I mean the Switch, and as soon as those rumors happened of like, hey, Xbox Game Pass could come to Switch, my head exploded. I was just like, please be true. Like, I can't even imagine that thing being, because in my opinion, like, the Nintendo, like the Switch right now is a good exclusives machine, right? Obviously, you're not going to buy something that you can play on your Xbox or PS4 on that unless you want to take it portable. Like, if you bought a game, if it's on all three, you're going to buy it on the Xbox or PS4 because it's going to look better and run better and whatever.
Right.
But the portability factor is nice. But literally, like, even if you said this is just a Nintendo machine, that thing has so many amazing Nintendo games, it makes it worth it alone. So, but that wasn't the case. Like, I remember my brother-in-law, when he got his Switch, he got it and he was just kind of like, I'm not sure about this thing. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, Zelda and Mario Kart are cool, but like, where's everything else? Because there was a point in time when, like, it was probably 6 months before Odyssey came out. So Mario Odyssey, and you were just like, okay, what are we playing? And there was a bunch of indie games and stuff, but nothing really worth it. And now it's like, oh no, like Smash is out and Mario Tennis and Mario Party and like all these games are out now to the point where you're like, yeah, it's completely worth it. And then if they literally turned around and was like, hey, Xbox Game Pass is on this, I know people that don't own a Switch that would buy it the day they announce it. Like, they'd be like, this is mine now. Because that would be the best way to play it on the go. Because, by the way, it is the best portable console ever made. It 100% is. So, we'll see if it happens.
And I don't even own one yet.
Right. Exactly. Wait until you get one, and then you're going to be like, oh, it's good. But also, like you said, the couch co-op stuff with the family, it's a blast. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. As far as it goes with your gaming habits today, obviously I just shared with you before the podcast started, I shared with you how to do the game share on your Xbox, so you're going to be playing it more often. But
I'm stoked about that.
What are your gaming habits like today?
Well, I'm probably, I told you what my scenario is, right? Like I was having some issues with my Xbox where I couldn't play at the same times that my kids are playing, and my kids are playing quite a bit. Between my kids and my wife, like I said, is addicted to Fortnite. between them, I couldn't really play Xbox, but now you've helped me resolve that issue, so I can play Xbox more now. I was probably like 95% PS4, and plus, I took this long break from Sony, so there's so much stuff that I need to catch up on. I still need to finish Last of Us, which I've found kind of difficult. Not difficult as in, the difficulty of the game itself, but just, I don't know. I'm having trouble with the pacing of that game. The game is amazing. I love the storytelling. It's really good. And it's what I expected as far as quality goes. I don't know. I'm having trouble with the pacing. Like it's a lot of slow, fast, and it's been a little bit taxing for me, but I desperately want to finish that game. I want to go back and play all of the Uncharted series. There's so many games that I've missed on PlayStation, and I desperately wanted to play, but I just at that time I only had an Xbox, so I'm going to be playing a lot of PlayStation for at least the foreseeable future. But now you've helped me get back to my Xbox as well. So
yeah, I think that, and that's also, in a way, taking a break like that can be a good thing as well. For example, I have said it before, I'll say it again. I didn't play video games for like 4 years. I was skateboarding, and that was my life. Like, I didn't want to do anything else. So when I came back 4 years later, and I was like, all right, cool, what'd I miss? Because as soon as I started playing video games, I started working at a video game store. So I threw myself fully back into that world to where I was like, cool, what'd I miss? And I was like, holy shit, I've missed a lot. And to be able to have it all out and available, and for you just to be like, cool, I'm going to do this and this and this and this. And I didn't have that period of time where I'm waiting for the good shit to come out. It's already there. For you to have a PS4 and not have played the Uncharted's or the God of Wars or any of those, and for you to just be like, cool, now I have all of them on this console, that's awesome. That's great. So yeah, I imagine you could go through a lot of the Sony stuff. Obviously you'll play your Xbox more now, but it's funny because as much as I love my Xbox, I would encourage you to get through those Sony games, because they're all good. Oh yeah, the Uncharted's are amazing. Last of Us, I think Last of Us is great. I also haven't played it since launch, so I don't know if it was just launch hype mixed with all of that. So I don't know what it was for me specifically, but that game I think is great. The Uncharted games, I had a PS3, just never played them. I wasn't interested in them. But then after watching Podcast Beyond and hearing Greg Miller talk all about Uncharted and how amazing it is, I got the collection and I played through all of them before 4 came out, and I'm just like, wow, these are really good games. They're really fun. And it's that's what I'm planning on doing is getting getting the collection and getting 4 and trying to play them in sequence, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, and again, it's cool that as much shit as people get for Sony remastering games multiple times and multiple consoles, again, in your case, you didn't get to play all these PS1 games, so for you, or PS2, 3, 4, whatever. So for you to have the console that plays them all, good for you, man. Yeah, I'd get through that. But yeah, go play your Xbox still, because Xbox is fun. It's not wrong with that either. If people wanted to check you out on the internet, where would they go do that? We have a podcast. Best way to find us is at okbeast.com. We actually have multiple podcasts, but the main podcast is OKBeast Podcast. That drops on every Monday, and we just talk about the latest video game news and so forth. But you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at RebelRed6, and 6 is spelled out SIX. And also, I think you guys are only coming up with a new podcast every 20 seconds or something like that. Yeah, we have multiple podcasts. Recently, we've come out with several short-term podcasts for different recent games like Anthem. Alex and I are doing a 5-episode Anthem podcast where we're just talking about the launch and kind of things that are going on around the launch of the game. And kind of how that's gone. But we just launched the Apex Legends podcast that's doing really, really well.
So I'm thankful for that. We also have an anime podcast called A Plus Anime. So lots of different things for lots of different people.
Yeah, I know. It's because like it's been like an ongoing joke. It's just like, hey, OKB says a new podcast.
Yeah, there were several that we launched there like back to back, and it made it sound like we're just tossing out podcasts left and right. But it was just weird timing. Like several of them came out around the same time. But yeah,
nothing wrong with that though. I mean, content's content, man. People enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, dude, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all the awesome stories with me, man. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
All right, and again, thank you, Brandon, for being on the show. Guys, if you want to check him out on Twitter, go ahead and follow him at RebelRed6. Of course, you could also check him out at okbeast.com, where they have all sorts of first off, name a video game. There's a podcast for it. Second off, just go there, look at all the reviews. They have an Apex Legends podcast, which of course, this Jumpmaster. There's a bunch of different podcasts there, and there's a lot of different content for you to check out of theirs. They even have merch and a Patreon, so feel free to go there and support him and all of that. Guys, if you want to be on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter. Also, the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. We also have a Facebook group, so feel free to just search that up, Growing Up Gaming Podcast Group, as well as on YouTube, just search up GUG Podcast. Again, thank you guys so much for your support each and every week listening to the show. Make sure you review us on iTunes. Make sure you share the show with your friends, because that's probably the biggest thing. As much as I like reviews and ratings and all that stuff, getting the episode into other people and letting them listen to it and having them want to come on the show and share their stories is the absolute best part of the show. So I get to meet all these awesome people and continue to have great conversations with you guys. So thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate it, and I will catch you guys next week with another new episode. See ya.